Hi, it's Mason, and right now we're going to talk about how to deep clean and reassemble your Game Boy Pocket after you had resurrected it. Alright, so welcome back to our series in which we're fixing this silver Game Boy Pocket. We've already taken it apart and troubleshooted it in episode 1 and episode 2. We cleaned this up, got it working again, revived it. This is now a resurrected Game Boy Pocket. We are just going to get it nice and shiny before we send it out into the world again. So these are the quickest ways to clean your Game Boy Pocket. This one actually isn't that dirty compared to other ones that we'll probably see on this channel. But these are just quick, safe ways to clean your Game Boy. So we're going to start, first things first, with the motherboard. And like in the last video, if you've been following along, we're going to use a lot of isopropyl alcohol, once again 90%. And first thing I like to do is just get a little Q-tip, rub all along these contacts for the buttons, not the controller. Yeah, just like that. And specifically I like to do that with the Q-tip just because I can really scrub it a little more. We'll do the rest with the toothbrush just because the rest of it isn't that dirty. And then we'll get the other side of the Q-tip, once again some isopropyl alcohol, and just rub it along the surface of that speaker. One of the worst things that can happen to a speaker is water gets in it. And it'll start rusting, it'll get all dirty, and it can really affect the sound, but sometimes just rubbing it with some isopropyl alcohol can really improve the sound quality. So as you can see, I mean, that is just disgusting. We're going to dip our toothbrush now in the isopropyl alcohol, and we're just going to give the rest of this a real good scrub. Now, you can see right there, I've rubbed off the label of the serial number, so I guess that will be lost to time, whatever number this Game Boy was. And once again, isopropyl alcohol is the weapon of choice for cleaning Game Boys, just because water would get in there and rust it. You do not want to use water to clean this. This is isopropyl alcohol. Specifically, you want to use 90% or above, just because it has a much lower water content. But fun fact, if you're cleaning a wound, 70% is actually better. So 70% for wounds, 90% for Game Boys. That's the mantra. So as you can see, I'm just scrubbing every crack and crevice of this thing, just getting it all. Even spots that I went over in the last video, we're just getting it really clean. You don't really need to clean these spots, that's just some flux from the soldering, but I like to clean it just to be thorough. So this is one wet Game Boy. I'm gonna go leave this out to dry just here in my home, and we'll get started with the shell and the buttons. Alright, so the buttons are pretty straightforward as well. You can clean these just in the sink, or you can clean them with some isopropyl alcohol. I've got it all set up right here, so I'm just gonna get my toothbrush and rub it across those membranes, just clean them up. The Game Boy should work pretty well actually, even if these are a little dirty. But I'm going to show you a trade secret in just a second on how to get these buttons working. If we don't know if these buttons work or not, but for sure they're going to work after this trick. That's how special it is. So I've got some sticky notes here. Just going to pull off one of these sticky notes right here. Pull it up a little closer so you can see it a little better. And so I've cleaned the top surface of this membrane, but now the bottom, I'm just going to get a little bit of alcohol on that, right? Just what's left on my toothbrush. And then you can see these black spots here. The top reason that the buttons stop working is because these get worn down and they lose how slick they are. They need to have like a good, even, uniform surface to work. So with the isopropyl alcohol on it, you're just going to push down on the button and streak. And normally one streak is good enough. I don't know if you can see that, but it's nice and clean now. And so just streak every single one of these buttons on. And it doesn't have to be sticky notes, it can be any sort of paper. Alright, so now we're on to the hard plastic buttons, and a lot of times I just like to, if I'm going to be cleaning the shell in a big tub of water, I'll just throw these in with them as well. But I think for this job we're just going to use isopropyl alcohol just because it's a pretty low maintenance job. But if sometimes you'll find these buttons and they're just covered in dirt and gunk, it's nice to just soak them in soapy water for a little bit and they'll do just fine. But for now we're just going to scrub them down with some isopropyl alcohol, call it good. Alright, so now we are on to the shell. In my disassembly video I talked about what you need to do to this, namely removing this right here and this little piece right here if it's really dirty and you want to scrub it with soapy water. This one really isn't that bad. It's scuffed up, but I mean there's not much we can do about that. So I'm going to just do it with some isopropyl alcohol and the toothbrush. Isopropyl alcohol really is the secret to cleaning your Game Boys. So here we go. Quick note with the screen, I like to just dab this little Q-tip with isopropyl alcohol, cover the whole thing up. A lot of times people put like stickers or tape on their screens. I don't get that, but if you just need to get rid of that residue, get your microfiber towel and just buff it out, and it should be pretty clean, pretty clear. So yeah, that's about as high clarity as we're going to get on the screen. There are some scratches that are just going to be part of it, and you can also just, microfiber towels are really good just for buffing out in general the whole Game Boy and making it so there's no streaks from the isopropyl alcohol on it. All right, keep going. Nice to get a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on the Q-tips and just roll them right into these little spots. And in general, any little tiny crevices, like around this border, around the bottom of the battery pack of the Game Boy, it's nice to just have this because you see it's pulling off a lot of dirt. Another place dirt really likes to hide is actually around the sticker. And most of these stickers are waterproof to some degree or another, so you don't really, I have yet to have ruined one in soapy water, so don't worry about that. Alrighty, so with that, we are now ready to reassemble our Game Boy Pocket. So I will just speed that up. If you need to know how to reassemble it, I would recommend just watching the video on how to take it apart in reverse, because it's honestly just the exact opposite of the steps that we just did. Pretty straightforward. You just re-screw everything together, and yeah, here we go. This part right here, you're just going to want to make sure that the power is lining up with the switch. Make sure that your speaker is fitting into that hole. It's cut out in the right shape, and just make sure that it's completely flush. You can always tell by the little speaker, the headphone jack and the power cord, if it is truly flush with the system. And then you're going to get your ribbon cable back in there. This one's being a little tricky. Make sure to use the Phillips head screws as you screw back in the motherboard, and save the tri-ring screws for the outside of the shell. Now, when you're putting on the back shell, I would just always recommend make sure that you have all of your buttons in and that you have your power switch connected, because there's been a few times when I've just gotten a little too trigger happy, put the back shell on, started putting in the rest of the screws, I turn it around and there's no buttons, and that's a pretty disappointing waste of time. So just to save you from the same issues, make sure to always have everything completely inserted before you start reinserting the screws. So right here, I just noticed that I didn't do a super great job of cleaning around this battery back, and you'll notice maybe a few spots that you missed, and it's totally fine. Just use isopropyl alcohol. Once again, it will evaporate very quickly. It will not rust your system. So there we go. Let's put in some little batteries and see how we're doing with this. All right, moment of truth. Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. Super Mario. All right, thanks for watching. This has been repairing a Game Boy Pocket start to finish. Be sure to tune in for more great videos on how to fix your Game Boys.